Choosing your build route can have a significant impact on the costs of your development. Now, while this sits in the plan it phase and specifically the facilitate stage of the roadmap to building houses, it's something that you need to actually pay some real attention to in the process when you are negotiating your land deal, because ultimately how you build out your site will have an impact on how much that's going to cost you and therefore what you should be paying for your land. However, what you're paying for your land is not the subject of this video, but what we are going to go into is talking about the three main types of build route that you can access in terms of building out your development. Incidentally, if you haven't already subscribed to the channel, there's coming up for almost 300 videos now. Please subscribe, support us, and once this video is finished, have a look around some other videos that you can consume. So the first thing that we recommend that you do when you get to this stage of your development is build out a plan for how you're actually going to do your development. So that plan itself will have things about who are going to be your contractors, where you're going to source your materials from, so that you have a laid out plan so that you can systematically then implement that as you go through your development. Because I'll tell you, once you actually start building out your site, you're going to have so many things to do and so many things to think about, without having a checklist to refer back to will really cause you some real problems. So this is an ideal time while the thing is going through planning permission and getting all the permissions in place, that you go through this planning process. And so we call this the project plan, and we recommend that you build a project plan, as I say, talking about who are your contractors going to be, who are your materials going to be supplied from, and what plant you're going to need, and any other requirements such as health and safety requirements that you need to satisfy in terms of putting on site facilities and all those different things that you will need. That does come later on in the program when you actually start building out the site, but these are things that you should be really thinking about at this stage of developing your site out. So the second area is then you need to choose your build route. And as I've mentioned before, there's three different types of build routes. So there is a turnkey solution, which is simply, we'll talk about that in more detail just in a moment. And then the second one is you hire a project manager to come in and project manage the site. And then the third one would be where you manage it yourself. So let's look at these a little bit more detailed. So Turnkey Solution is where you hire a contractor to actually develop your development. I'm not quite sure whether that's a term I could use, but anyway, that's what they're going to do. They're going to build out your site. And essentially what you're doing is you're handing the project over to them, and you're asking them to basically hand you the keys to the properties that they've built out at the end of the process. Yes, you will stay in touch and have an interest in the development, but they are basically going to be running the site and making sure it's delivered within the time frame that you have specified. This is the most expensive route to take, and one of the reasons is that they have to mitigate the costs because they're going to give you a fixed price, and therefore in order to make sure that they can deliver and make a profit of that, out of that, they need to put in certain contingencies. And the big contingency that they're going to put in is the foundations, because until you actually dig into the ground, you really don't know what type of foundations that you're going to need. So they're probably going to take the foundations figure or the amount that they imagine that they're going to have to spend on that, whatever's been specified by your structural engineer for the building control regulations. They will take that and they will probably put in a margin, sometimes up to doubling that figure, where if they suspect that there could be some real problems. So they'll build that contingency in. You will also be paying for profit on profit. So they'll be managing the process, so you'll be paying for them to manage the process, because that's a time-consuming thing, is actually managing the process. So it's only right that they should be paid for that. They will be hiring subcontractors in, and they will be putting a margin on because they will be managing those subcontractors. It's all very legitimate, but you can see why this is going to be a much more expensive route. And if you you don't allow for that when you're finding land, then you are going to be really eating into your profit. So this is why it's an early consideration, although it fits into this stage. The next area that we're going to look at is where you hire a project manager. Now, the project manager is essentially going to do the same job as the main contractor with the turnkey solution, except that they are going to be managing your project. So they will be sourcing the materials. So you'll be paying the price that they source the materials at. So whatever price they're able to negotiate and source those materials at. They will also then bring in the subcontractors, which they will hire and manage, and you will be paying the cost price of those subcontractors, unlike with the turnkey solution where there'll be a margin added onto that. And then they will have a fee for overseeing the project. This fee could be 10, 15, 20%, depending on how they value their services. So they might have a percentage fee of the actual project. That might be how they manage it, or they may have a fixed fee, which would be the better solution in all honesty, because the first scenario of having a percentage would almost encourage them not to be good necessarily negotiating the best prices. Of course, you could actually have a bonus incentive situation put in there. So you have got your costings, and you could say if you can bring the costings at a percentage below whatever the costings were initially, then I will pay you a bonus, because that would be a win-win for both of you. So they will be managing the project. Again, they'll be consulting with you, and you will be involved in that. Now, I have to say, like anything in life, there are good project managers and there are lazy and ineffective project managers. So I do talk about the build route process in my book, You a Property Developer, from page 49 onwards. So if you'd like to get a copy of this, I'm currently offering it for free. All I ask is that you pay for the postage and packaging. And incidentally, in addition to that, I've created a land finding course to go along with it. So you'll be invited to join the land finding course when you order a copy of this book. And then the final one that we're going to look at is where you project manage it yourself. So clearly it's going to be very similar to the project manager, except the entire responsibility for managing this site falls on your shoulders. And so if there's any contingency that's needed, you're going to have to spend that. But if you don't, then you obviously save that as you. So in other words, that's a saving, direct saving from having the turnkey solution. Obviously, you are not then adding a profit necessarily to your actual development, although there may be reasons why you would do that, but that's kind of the subject of another aspect of development. But in order to actually manage this site, you are going to have to be actively involved. So that's going to be a time element. And so therefore, you do have an element of where you are spending time there, and therefore you should be paid for that. So even though it seems like you're saving money by not having a project manager, you are actually investing your own time and therefore you should be actually paid for that. So there is not necessarily a real saving other than you keep the money in your family, so to speak. So you are keeping the money for handling the project management. Now, one of the advantages of self-managing yourself is that you've got complete control. You can negotiate the best terms that you can in terms of materials. You can employ your subcontractors. You're very much going to be in touch with the subcontractors. You will very quickly realize who your good subcontractors are and who are poor performers, so that when you move on to your next development, you'll probably be looking at poor performers and looking to replace them with other subcontractors. So in time, you will build a very, very good team of subcontractors that you can rely upon. Not necessarily the cheapest, because that's not the most important thing. It's about having subcontractors that can deliver quality, but also don't have to be managed too much, because that saves you time and ultimately it saves you a lot of headaches, particularly if they're able to deliver their particular element of the program on time. And I'm going to talk about why that's important as in another video, in honesty, but it is important that they manage their time properly and that you can rely upon them. The other benefit is that you really will learn, particularly if this is your first development, you will really learn the process of what it takes to build a house, so that when you next are looking at your next site, you're going to have a much better idea of the things that you have to consider, because with all the very best will in the world, there will inevitably be some gaps in your knowledge. And so therefore, if you actually manage it yourself, you're going to very quickly learn the process. Now, a reason a lot of people don't want to do that is because they're kind of frightened of the process, or it may be for other considerations. So for instance, if you're starting this off on a part-time basis and therefore you have a full-time job, you maybe can't be on site all the time and all day. And so therefore what you need to do is perhaps work with a project manager or the turnkey solution in order to get your first development over the line to create that chunk of money so that you can then quit your day job and then go into this full time. So there are different reasons why you might want to choose one of the 3 different build routes. That's obviously a decision that you need to think about and a decision that you need to make. So I hope you found that useful. Remember, if you want a copy of my book, you can get it at youapropertydeveloper.com. And if you haven't already subscribed to the videos, to this channel, then please subscribe now. We really appreciate your support. Only about 15% of the people who actually watch these videos have subscribed. So I'd really like to see that figure moving up, and I really would appreciate your support. Until next time, take care, and I look forward to speaking to you then. Bye-bye.